once and for all. Up next, Beating Imposter Syndrome with executive coach Cristina Villarreal.
Welcome participants to the Latinas in Tech Summit. My name is Dr. Cristina Villarreal, and I'm going to be talking today about imposter syndrome, how to overcome imposter syndrome and build your inner leader. A bit about my background. I work as an executive leadership coach across a wide range of leaders in Silicon Valley, from founders to technical individuals, people managers, C-suite, and teams across large organizations like Google, Facebook, Airbnb, Slack, to smaller, fast-scaling startups that are just on their way. So go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go over some of the most widely asked questions that I get as an executive leadership coach. I work with a wide range of underrepresented leaders coming from backgrounds non-traditional to tech. And so many people come to me with the question of how to overcome their sense of imposter syndrome. One question I frequently get is, what can I do to manage my mindset when I feel like an imposter in my professional role? The first thing I advise doing is to check in with what's happening with your body. Many people experience a tightness in their chest. They notice their breathing increasing. They may notice their body temperature increase. And this is all a signal that you are on high alert. You feel a sense of stress and anxiety in that moment, which is really common. Anytime you're facing presentations, speaking up in an all-hands meeting, this is, I think, one of the most common areas where people feel a real sense of dread and feeling as though they are not prepared for that moment. So I first advise that people notice what's happening in their body when they're not in those settings, and figure out for yourself, what are some practices that you can implement that target the area of performance that's most impacted by your symptoms of anxiety. So are there breathing exercises, mindfulness practices to bring you back into the moment and remind yourself why you're there in that role? For many people, it can be a huge distraction to feel worried about their performance, but it's a good opportunity to think through, what are the reasons why you are in that room? For many people, it's thinking back about their journey, how far they've come, and how unique their experiences are to be in that moment. And it can really root people to their sense of strength. Another frequently asked question that I get is that experience that people feel when they look different or sound different. They recognize that they come from a different background than the vast majority of the people that they're working with. Many people share with me that they'll never be seen as an equal. This is for many people who come from underrepresented backgrounds, this feeling that they aren't going to be seen as capable or as well equipped as the majority of what the tech industry looks like. And the tech industry is predominantly made up of white men. So one thing that I remind people is that the tech industry, while it still continues to be predominantly white and male, the people that populate the tech industry, they had a lot of opportunities that you may not have had. There were paths that were easier for them to get into that room than you. So the reminder is your path there was much harder. You overcame obstacles, both systematic bias, discrimination, opportunities that were much harder for you to earn. So again, recognizing that if anyone has earned their way into the room, it's more likely going to be women and people of color, people from underrepresented backgrounds. So the feeling of equality, again, the fear that the diversity hire, there's this feeling for many people that they're not going to be seen as an equal. But to be clear, when you are a minority in the room, the only female, the only person of color voice in that room, your job is actually harder. To be in the minority, to be an outliner, So facing the difficulty of being the only voice in the room from a female perspective, a person of color, can be very difficult. So when thoughts come into your mind around, am I going to be seen as an equal? One thing that can be grounding is to recognize that your job is much harder than the majority of the people, where they're surrounded by other people who look like them, sound like them, come from the same backgrounds. So to be an outlier means that you're practicing skills that other people aren't forced to do. Your job is more challenging. And so there's a more common experience of feeling uncomfortable, feeling unprepared, or judged or criticized for being this outsider because you are a unique individual that looks and sounds different from others in the room. Okay. Even though you may have that feeling, it doesn't indicate that your ability or the value that you bring into that room is less than. You may be struggling with feeling uncomfortable, in part because you're still adjusting to the novelty. But when you speak with seasoned leaders who've developed experience over the years of being that only voice in the room, they develop a sense of confidence in that they know they can speak up, they know they can contribute a meaningful, diverse perspective that others may not have that insight. One of the other commonly asked questions that I am asked as a leadership coach, what can I do to become more confident in pursuing promotions, leadership roles, now that I'm here in tech? So for many people, they are the first in their family, possibly in their community, to rise through the ranks of leadership in the tech industry. But for many people, the question can become, well, what's next? There becomes less and less visibility into how to continue to grow professionally. And for many people, there's a sense that their promotion or their eligibility to receive a higher compensation rate or move into a higher level of leadership will happen in one conversation, one terrifying conversation around their performance review. For many people, it will until their end of year performance to speak with their managers about the possibility of their eligibility for promotion. So one thing I encourage people to do is to not believe that your eligibility for a promotion happens in one conversation. This can be an opportunity for you to practice out, asking for feedback, having discussions in your one-on-ones with your managers about where you are in your evolution in completing your job role, looking at what your job description looks like, what are the best practices, what skills have you developed, experience and confidence and autonomy and practicing on your own, what areas of growth can you work on to continue to move towards a higher level of leadership in your organization. Asking for feedback helps you to better understand what you can work towards over the course of the next time period between now and your next performance review. So for many people, the struggle can also be understanding what's next. What do they want to do professionally? And for many people, they may not have the types of relationships with mentors who are higher or further along in their career to discuss what they may be solving for. So more on that later. But one of the things that I also encourage people to do is to recognize that when you are ready to move up in your career, seek more leadership opportunities, is to recognize that even though you may be growing and developing skills that make you capable and competitive for a leadership opportunity, your organization may not be matched up at the same time as you are. That doesn't mean that you aren't ready to take on a higher level role. So this is a time where some people can start to have conversations outside of their organization. What are some of the opportunities that may exist in the outside world in other companies? And I know for many people, this can be a scary, intimidating thought, especially if you developed a high level of recognition and capability in your organization and your role. it can be difficult to think about risking leaving that role to an outside organization where it may take some time to develop that connection and rapport with leaders there. I still encourage you to seek out conversations in which you can understand how your skills may transfer into another organization, so that you have a sense of what your value is outside of your organization. So as you're thinking about growing in your leadership, one of the things that I encourage people to do when I work with them as a leadership coach is to identify what you're solving for. As you're having conversations with your managers and people in outside organizations, they'll want to know, well, what are you interested in achieving? And for many people, it can become unclear the higher up you go on the industry's ladder, so to speak. You may be thinking, of course, about higher level of compensation. You'll want to seek out opportunities where you'll at least be earning as much as you currently are in your current role or more. And that may be one of the priorities that you're solving for. Okay, great. But there are other things to consider and recognize how you're going to layer these priorities as you're considering next role opportunities. So for some people, there's that desire to achieve a higher level title. That's important to them, particularly if they're invested in working their way up through an organization in which that title is going to be recognized as an increased level of expertise and someone who has become an industry expert in their domain. For others, one thing that is important for people to solve for is looking at the impact on their lifestyle. So while traditionally career growth and leadership development may look like a higher level title or more compensation, for some, it may be more freedom to have that flexibility in their work-life balance, to have autonomy in how they do their work. For some people is one of the most important things that they're solving for. For others, what's really important for them is to find meaning and feel that the impact that they're delivering is visible for them to experience and recognize, either locally or on a larger societal or global scale. And I think, it's important to recognize, so if you're interested in having a high level of impact, recognize where your values are connecting to the role that you're achieving or the role that you're working towards, to determine where is the thing that you care most about. Looking at organizations that will provide an opportunity for you to contribute and make that impact will help you start to narrow down the companies that you're thinking about looking for work opportunities. For other people, seeking out leadership growth is an opportunity to work with really impressive, skilled experts in their areas of industry in order to learn from them, work alongside them, contribute to projects with other people who are best in class. And that may be something that you're solving for. For others, related to people, it may be the opportunity to lead as a people manager, larger teams, being able to create a culture that is welcoming, more diverse, is going to be the most important thing for some people. And then lastly, I think for some people, the main focus of how they're thinking about growing professionally is having diversity in the type of work that they're doing. They are someone who thinks that, to continue to do the same thing on a day-to-day basis is less interesting to them. So they're looking for opportunities to work on a wide range of projects, solve a wide range of problems, to keep their interest and their motivation at its highest level. And it may be working in an interdisciplinary way, cross-functional way. And this is for some people what keeps them interested and motivated in their role. So along these lines, when you're seeking out leadership and you're seeking out opportunities to grow professionally, one of the most important things is to be clear in what you're solving for. How are you prioritizing, from finance to lifestyle, impact, people? These are all areas that are important, but you'll want to recognize what are the most important areas for you. So here are some of the questions that you can work on answering as though you were working with a leadership coach yourself. These are some of the steps that I work with people in order to help bring all of the areas that we've just talked about or discussed into reality. So for example, who can you ask for feedback? Yes, your manager, of course, is a good person to help understand how you're showing up in your role, but you may also want to discuss your abilities with your colleagues, other people who know your work, your outcomes, how your communication skills are, and hearing out what areas of opportunities can you grow in order to move up to that next level. Do those people have any recommendations for you? Are there things that might be helpful to you in your learning journey that can contribute to how you are developing as a leader? There may be opportunities for you in your current organization and your role, which brings us to the how. But you may find that your role is more restricted and there's less opportunity to develop those stretch projects or develop skills outside of your current role description. And this is where opportunities like contributing to your employee resource group, your ERG, taking on leadership opportunities for you to practice out group presentations, speaking in front of an audience. This may be something that is important to you in thinking about how you're bringing your voice into a higher degree of visibility, making posts relevant to your area of interest on social media, LinkedIn, contributing to conferences in your areas of interest. These are some of the things that you can talk about when you are interviewing or being considered for a higher level of leadership role. So what are some specific steps that you can take? For many people, these are solutions that don't happen in one day. Most people realistically are busy in their day-to-day, managing their current role in their day-to-day life. Breaking these things down into small steps. The first step may be finding more information, speaking with someone, arranging, to connect with them. May be that first step. So as often as possible, you'll want to break down these steps, make lists, and work through them in small intervals. When there are opportunities for you to contribute as a leader in your current in your current role, you'll want to think about when in your workday these opportunities may be available to you. So are there meetings you can ask to sit in on and learn from leaders who are presenting at higher level roles? You'll want to find out, are there projects that you can contribute to or shadow in order to learn? These are conversations that are helpful to have with your manager to make sure that everything that you're doing these are conversations that you can have with your manager to better understand how to contribute in your role and what are some ways that you can level up in your current role that is also helpful to the organization. So again, I'm hoping that people can come away from this conversation with an action plan and next steps. Overcoming imposter syndrome and developing yourself as a leader doesn't happen overnight. There are a set and series of practices, actions that you can take in order to continue to grow over time. So commit to these small achievable steps, making lists, choosing out activities that you can accomplish in under 30 minutes so that on a daily basis, you can move towards your goals. So even in this moment, I'm going to ask that people write down 1 to 3 things that you can do, whether it's reaching out to a colleague to better understand how you're showing up in your role. It may be finding out who are some industry leaders that you can reach out to and ask for them how they got into their degree of development in their career. These are all things that over time will help you become more confident and work towards your next career goals. Thank you for your time.